name is Marissa. I'm a Millikan nursing major. I'm going to give you a speech about the LGBT community. The lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual community, also known as LGBT, was founded on the Stonewall riots that took place in the 1960s. The riots began after the police pulled members of the LGBT community out of a bar violently. Taking place in New York City in the 60s, where America was not so kind to the LGBT community, caused an uproar that made them realize they needed to change. I would like you to imagine walking down the street and being arrested for wearing gender inappropriate clothing. Could you imagine getting arrested because you like to wear a specific brand like Champion or Nike or American Eagle? Something you see as appropriate could be and can be mistreated because others don't agree. This was the life of anyone who wanted to dress to reflect their true gender emotions. I plan to inform anyone who may not know about the LGBT community how hard they had to fight to be able to celebrate their rights with a parade every year. I have attended a parade, the Pride Fest, in support of the freedom and feelings of all people. I have researched this topic and shared the history behind the Pride Parade. The reason why it is important is because it influences and helps a multitude of people and their families by allowing them to choose themselves over other people's views. The world has already evolved and changed in viewpoints on gay rights. Although the views have changed, arresting people for dresses related to gender to allowing same-sex marriage, and still there's limits in states and internationally. My goal is to educate you on stipulations and regulations that the LGBT community must deal with. I will begin by telling you about the gender-neutral bar in the 60s that was a refuge for people to be safe and feel safe, where they were free to be themselves. Next, I will share with you the foundation to the Pride Fest and disruptions of the Stonewall riots that founded the gay rights movement. Lastly, I will tell you about the LGBT community evolving and how far the yearly march has brought them and how they have the rights that they now deserve. Stonewall riots, according to the history website on how activists plotted the first gay parade, the foundation of the gay rights movement that is now demonstrated through the Pride Fest. On June 28, 1969, in the early morning, there was an uprising in Manhattan in New York City when the police began to pull people out of the Stonewall Inn. The Stonewall Inn was a nightclub that was home to several individuals that they considered to be their home. They could have been runaways, they could have been doing drag shows, but in the 60s, the nightclubs were not allowed to have liquor license if they provided alcohol to the gay community. Although the police in New York City were aware that they did not have a liquor license and they were serving to gays, they were being paid off. And once they realized that they wanted to get a warrant, they went in and began to raid. They aggressively pulled people out, and according to the history website, there was a woman that yelled out for help, and the crowd responded by throwing pennies at the police officers, causing a full-blown riot. Hundreds of people began to partake in throwing pennies and other things at the police. The fire department and other officials had to come break up the riot. That very same following day, according to the history website, they gathered hundreds of people outside of the same building as a protest. So the Stonewall Inn, there was a protest outside of it in New York City as an act, the very first act of the political activists known as the LGBT community. The history website also noted that the following year, Craig Rodwell, who was the first activist, led the first annual march in remembrance of the previous riot from the community that had flourished and now grown into an entire movement. There were several milestones over the years. Legislature changed as well. Although the March of the Parades were being carried out and the LGBT community felt that they needed to push for changes in laws and regulations to help for fair rights for all sexes. International discriminations of LGBT rights. In the European Journal of International Relations, they started making standards and legislatures and permits. While some European states, like Denmark, became world-leading advocates for the LGBT rights, providing the most extensive legal protest to their citizens, others have recently discriminalized homosexuality. Furthermore, the National Conference of State Legislature website informed me that there are court laws that ruled states cannot ban same-sex marriage. They cannot allow any state to ban it, but they can allow them to not permit them from marrying in their state. So while they can't tell them, I can't give you a license, they cannot go on a podium and say, I do. That is currently changing. The National Conference of State Legislature website gave me statistics on same-sex marriage regulations from 1993 to 2014 when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled to decline hearing cause on same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage began in Hawaii when the Supreme Court ruled to deny same-sex marriage, saying it violated states' constitutional equal protection rights. Furthermore, saying the state could change if it had a compelling reason. They could not find a compelling reason at the time. Thus now 31 states at the time had defined marriage as between a man and a woman. Just 19 states in the District of Columbia allowed same-sex in the 90s. We now have at least 37 states, including Washington, D.C., that recognize marriage to opposite sex and same-sex. In fact, according to the U.S. Supreme Court National Conference of State Legislature website, as of December 2nd, 2013, Hawaii has also transitioned into allowing same-sex and opposite-sex marriage. Originally, the Pride Fest was all about the rights and fighting for them. However, this year they have grown to be more approving and choosing their sexuality and orientation themselves. As previously touched on, 37 states as of 2015 recognize the same-sex marriage out of 50. The statistics are not that bad. As you can see, there is still work to be done. Pride is not only recognized for the fights that they're doing and the legislature movements they want to do, they are dedicated to a whole month of celebration now. June is the month that's dedicated to the Pride Fest. They don't only use it as legislature and ways to pass bills, they use it as celebrations of people that may have died due to hate crimes and the spread of HIV and AIDS. According to the ABC News website, Gilbert Baker, who was the American artist and gay rights activist and U.S. Army veteran, created the Pride Fest in 1978. According to the Baker website, the association between gay San Francisco, Superior Harvey, Mike in 1978 caused them for a symbolic view of rights. Thus, through June, the month of celebration, you will see a flag hung in memory. The Baker's website also broke down the flag into several different parts. So the gay flag is not just colors, but is symbolic of multiple other things. Life is at the top because it's most important, and people have died behind the Pride Fest and their movements. Healing is because of all of the negative comments that have happened over the years, and they're now trying to heal and move forward. Sunlight is to brighten the future. Nature is because, although some may say opposite, they feel that this is their natural calling to be with their self. Serenity, because they now are whole. And spirit, because although they've gone through so much negative, their spirit hasn't broken yet. As stated by ABC News, the month of Pride support includes fun Pride events that draw crowds and support because of actions to help numbers and help aid votes. They also have volunteers and contests so they can donate proceeds to help not only fund flags, but also to help fund legislature and help move activists to further work on what they're trying to accomplish now. I personally attended the Pride Fest a few years ago in Champaign, and what I learned from the Pride Fest is although it was fun and memorable, every station that you stop at, there's something educational. These flags are hung everywhere, and you can stop and ask anybody, and they can explain to you what they are. If you buy a shirt, they will tell you what it means. If you stop at a booth, there's a paper telling you this is what this proceed goes to, or here's what we're supporting. So you're not just going there to have fun, but everything is meant for you to learn and be educated. They don't ask for support unless you know what you're talking about. So while I attended that, I've learned so much more doing the research. What I think I've walked away knowing the most is that while you can walk down the street or in a bar dress in any brand of clothes you want. You walk in and nobody judges you. You are able now to walk in and wear high heels if you want to, be a man or a woman. You can get married in 37 states, working on 50. And they are not only fighting, but supporting each other. And they have a whole month dedicated to all of the progress they've made, and to support negative things that happen and show that they are still willing to fight.